Hey everybody! Thanks for coming. I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate my 1 year anniversary than having a live. So here we are, and yeah. How's your week been? It's good to see you guys here. Thank you, Amy. Yeah, I did. The 1,000 really pushed me over the top. I got a lot of help with that, and I really appreciate it for everybody that has supported my channel so far. Yeah, my week has been pretty busy too. Um, in fact, I have a funny story for when I left work this afternoon. I went to put my car in drive and it did the little ding ding ding, put it in park if you're not ready to go anywhere. And I did that like 3 or 4 times before I realized that I didn't close my driver's door. So that's how my day went. Yeah, it was pretty funny. But hey, gotta laugh at yourself, right? All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and get started. This one is a long one. It took me a while to get it ready, and here we go.
Welcome back, jurors. Grab your coffee, your legal dictionaries, and your magnifying glasses, because today we're stepping back into a saga that strains logic, shreds credibility, and single-handedly could keep the court stenographer industry afloat. Of the Twin Ultrasound Cinematic Universe. Long before the internet sleuths began dissecting claims frame by frame, Michael Maricini served as an early example. Then, Greg Gillespie became the beta test. Between August 2021 and April 2023, Greg was dragged into a dumpster fire of civil suits, protection orders, and increasingly unhinged allegations. Conveniently, public records show Laura was busy dominating elite equestrian circuits during this same window, collecting ribbons and bragging about high-value horses, all while filing legal and medical claims that she was physically devastated, bedridden, and actively miscarrying. In this episode, we're reconstructing the timeline day by wretched day. We'll be dissecting court filings, police records, and writing records to see how a handful of dates morphed into years of litigation and conflict. If you're ready to follow the receipts, subscribe and join us in the jury box. A quick note, we're separating our saga out by acts, which we completely forgot to say in the last episode. We're picking up where we're supposed to be. Welcome in, everybody. Before we dismantle today's legal theatrics, you know the drill. Hit the buttons that make the internet happy. Like, subscribe, and the notification bell, unless you enjoy being the last to know. And to get behind-the-scenes access to the madness, join the membership squad. We're starting with the FACS, because conjecture is more fun when it's shared. Buckle up. Justice is supposed to be blind, but I'm definitely not. Welcome to the virtual juror, where the law is complicated, but my commentary is not. Snark may be my reality, but evidence is still royalty. Act 13, the Twin Ultrasound Cinematic Universe. Let's time warp back to August 2021. If you cross-reference the court filings, police reports, and equestrian records, you won't find someone quietly nursing a personal crisis. You'll find someone keeping a schedule that would exhaust an Olympian, juggling litigation, medical theater, persistent pestering, and horse jumping. Here are the receipts. On August 1st and 2nd, Laura was busy pinging an online abortion pill provider, claiming some mystery doctor suggested her previous attempt might have failed and the fetus development stalled. Naturally, there's no actual confirmation, but she's still finding the energy to bother Greg. On August 4th, Laura tells Greg she's down for a second round of medication. Then, because consistency is clearly not her strong suit, she immediately pivots to throwing roadblocks at the whole plan. On August 5th, the theater ramps up. Laura decides to show up at Greg's home, uninvited, and loiter on his porch for over an hour. Greg later notes that she opted for a dramatic performance on his doorstep, allegedly swallowing the abortion pills right in front of him. On August 6th, the main event for this specific circus, Laura slides into Greg's messages with an ultrasound photo, claiming, you guessed it, twins. She tops this performance by claiming one of the babies already has a severe birth defect from the medication she just took. The timing, the biology, and the medical logic here are about as stable as a house of cards in a hurricane, and just like that, the stage is set for the insanity that follows. We're gonna do an autopsy of the August text exchange, because it's really the genesis of a playbook. If you thought your worst breakup texts were a trip, the August 6th thread is the literal big bang of the Twin Ultrasound Cinematic Universe.
Oop. It would help if my mic wasn't muted. So I have a curiosity question. What was your, remember back to your worst breakup and what it must have been like? And it can't even come close to this, right? Because I know mine was a lot, but Laura's way much more. I agree, Wings. Probably not good memories. We'll get back to it though.
When you hold these messages up to the light of community receipts and digital forensics, the whole house of cards doesn't wobble. It collapses. Let's take a seat and examine how Laura tried to corner Greg with some highly questionable medical proof, served with a massive side of reality. Laura kicks things off by announcing that she's at urgent care. Why? Not because she's experiencing standard pregnancy symptoms, but because she's, in her words, pissed off. Apparently, in her world, getting ghosted is a perfectly valid medical diagnosis, requiring an immediate transvaginal ultrasound. Within a suspiciously tight window, she's blasting photos of the monitor. Because when you're in the middle of a high-stress, high-stakes medical exam, your top priority is obviously live reporting it to the guy you're trying to trap. She wasn't just sending file exports. She was snapping angled, low-res photos of the screen to sell the in-the-moment chaos. The glare, the lighting, the reflection, it's all engineered theater, screaming, "Look, I'm literally on the table right now." Laura then walks Greg through the logistics, casually dropping the bomb. She didn't see the second one. But wait, how did she lose a whole fetus? She immediately pivots to those August 5th abortion pills. According to Laura's bespoke medical science, she took the pills, but only one twin got the memo, while the other one was fine. To really seal the deal, she makes sure to note that the survivor might have severe, lifelong deformities thanks to her half-baked abortion attempt. As a potential juror, you have to look at the clock. She claims she swallowed a pill on the 5th, but by the 6th, less than 24 hours later, she's claiming a transvaginal ultrasound detected a localized facial deformity in an embryo. It's a clinical exercise in manufactured urgency designed to hit the emotional panic button. But Greg doesn't panic. Instead, he runs a quick reverse image search, and surprise, the sonogram is a carbon copy of a random blog post from March 2015. I'd be remiss if I didn't pause here for a moment. It takes a special kind of audacity to scroll through a stranger's 2015 blog about the heartbreak of vanishing twin syndrome and think, perfect, this is the prop I need for my scam. While the original author was baring their soul to help grieving parents, Laura allegedly viewed their trauma as a free clip art library for her own bizarre theater. Stealing a sonogram from a real-life tragedy to weaponize it in a petty, fabricated plot doesn't just cross the line of human decency. It sprints past it at Olympic speeds. Back on our timeline, Greg sends Laura the link, pairs it with 2 home security clips from her stalking his place while he was sick with the vid, and records the fallout. Once the call ends, he blocks her across the board. Again. But before the block hammer dropped, she was badgering Greg to zoom in, see? She was working overtime as his personal tour guide through a pixelated landscape of heavily manipulated data. What she really didn't want him zooming in on was the blurry ghost of a watermark, haunting the corner of the image. While she was directing his attention to baby A, she was praying he wouldn't spot the digital footprint left behind by whatever budget bin free app freelancer she used to cook up her evidence. Can someone say Fiverr?
So I want to take a pause real quick and let you guys know that Winx is posting the GoFundMes for some of the men in the chat. And instead of super chats tonight, if you guys feel free to please give to one of their GoFundMes so they can help with their legal fees, because they are still dealing with this still now, which is crazy when you think about it, because we are talking about something that has been going on that we know about since 2014, and with one of the victims that is currently public since 2018. Or 2016 he knew her, so it's been 10 years that he is still having to fight in court. And I really appreciate that.
Looking past the pixelated smudges, and the medical telemetry is just as fake as the rest of her story. The monitor doesn't match a twin pregnancy timeline at all. Furthermore, those conveniently cropped blurred edges are clearly hiding the one thing that matters: the name of the actual patient whose ultrasound she stole. The timeline juxtaposes her frantic texts with the actual reality of urgent care logistics. According to her, she breezes through check-in, prep, and a highly invasive transvaginal ultrasound and walks out a full, conclusive report of a twin pregnancy and a botched chemical abortion, in the time frame that wouldn't even get you through the waiting room at a real clinic. And in the aftermath, Greg chose distance. This moment was the beta test for the chaos we'd later see in the Clayton Echard dispute. The same urgent medical theater, the same sketchy ultrasound imagery, and the same desperate, dueling interpretations of reality. Whether you view these messages as evidence or straight-up fiction, August 6th was the pivot point. The drama that has officially escaped the DMs and entered the permanent record. But before we move into the courthouse phase of the story, we need to take a quick break, because what happens next shifts the battlefield through text messages to the Maricopa County court system. This segment is sponsored by my shop site, and more specifically, my daily sanity stack. To bring these deep dives to life, I spend an absurd amount of time chained to my desk analyzing records. To actually survive that, I rely on 2 things. OPC3 in the morning, which is a tasty antioxidant purple powder that keeps my back and joints from completely locking up after hours of sitting, and mocha tonics in the afternoon, When regular coffee starts to feel like warm water and sad thoughts, Mocha Tonics drags my focus back to reality kicking and screaming with amino acids and ginkgo biloba. Part of the way I'm able to produce this content you love so much is through this affiliate partnership. When you grab this focus duo through my link, you're directly helping me keep this channel running and the deep dives coming. Check out the link below to fuel your focus and support the studio. Act 14, the Maricopa Blitzkrieg. The August 6th ultrasound dispute didn't end the conflict. It supercharged it. Within days, the drama migrated from texts and calls to the Maricopa County court system, where it would remain for years. On August 11th, 2021, only 5 days later, Laura filed a civil suit against Greg, pro se. Because why pay for a lawyer when you can represent yourself? She was gunning for approximately $45,000 in damages. The packet included a summons, a civil complaint, and a certificate of compulsory arbitration. Her complaint was the greatest hits collection of her version of reality. She claimed she got pregnant. Greg turned into a villain who questioned everything, and she was allegedly coerced into a failed chemical abortion. She threw in every buzzword she could find: marriage promises, domestic violence statutes, and intentional infliction of emotional distress, just to get the payout. The timing is, to put it mildly, fascinating. A relationship that lasted a few dates had officially metastasized into a formal lawsuit demanding tens of thousands of dollars. But Greg wasn't about to write a check. He was prepared to fight back. On August 12th, 2021, the very next day, Greg headed to Dreamy Draw Justice Court. Yes, that's the actual name, and filed for an order of protection. His version of reality was a bit less cinematic. He painted a picture of 3 dates, 1 hookup, and a 9-day relationship that ended abruptly. The breakup, he alleged, triggered a barrage of contact, fake pregnancy claims, and a desperate game of whack-a-mole with his blocked phone numbers. He also put the ultrasound on blast. Greg testified he'd reverse image searched the sonogram right back to a 2015 blog post, and even had an OBGYN confirm the image was definitely not hers. Judge Frank Conti signed the protective order, and on paper, Greg had his win. In practice, things were just starting. A court order is only as good as the paper it's printed on, if you can't hand it to the person. Serving Laura proved to be an exercise in frustration. Process servers struck out time and time again.
Speaking of court orders, I know we've all been watching what's going on in the Karen Reed saga this week, and that's really bugging me because of subpoenas are supposed to mean something, and yet apparently they don't. Anyway, back to our video.
Leaving the order effectively toothless. Because it wasn't served, it never became fully effective. Greg was trapped in a procedural purgatory. He had the document, but until it was officially served, it was essentially a piece of art. The paper existed, but the enforcement was a pipe dream, and while Greg was stuck in legal limbo, the rest of the world kept turning. On August 13th, 2021, 48 hours after filing her lawsuit and less than 24 hours after Greg secured his order of protection, the Scottsdale PD was back at Laura's place for a civil standby. The matter had nothing to do with Greg. Instead, it involved an ongoing dispute with contractor Sean Roanhorse. Police records show officers hovering while property was retrieved and a construction dispute spiraled. The significance here isn't the DIY drama, it's the overlap. While Laura was busy suing Greg for emotional damages, she was simultaneously juggling a separate escalating war over dirt. The pattern of simultaneous, high-intensity disputes becomes a recurring theme as our timeline unfolds. On August 17th, the next development gave us one of the strongest filings in the docket to date. Process server Gary Steiner's Certificate of Attempted Service reads less like a legal document and more like a nature documentary. Steiner claims he approached the house, spotted a large dog through the window, and noticed it barked once, before suddenly going quiet. Based on this riveting canine behavioral analysis,
I gotta stop it right here. Who here has a dog? Because in my house, we have 3. And if somebody new comes to the house and even remotely gets on the property or makes some kind of noise, my dogs are barking. All of them. And they don't stop. So the dog barking once, and you can tell them to stop, and they still don't. Has anybody seen the Sharilla, like the videos that are coming with the, police going over to her house or something, and her dad has the dogs in the background and they just yap, 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 yap. Barking once does not sound like it actually happened because my dog would not bark once and then stop. I don't get it.
Steiner concluded Greg must be inside, actively silencing the dog to dodge his papers. His grand solution? Alternative service. If he couldn't personally hand Greg the lawsuit, he suggested that slapping it on the front door would work. Just picture it. A $45,000 lawsuit, a process server moonlighting as a dog whisperer, and a conspiracy theory that Greg was deep cover with his pet to evade a subpoena. It's one of those unhinged moments that's hard to ignore. On that same day, Laura filed a demand for jury trial, creating a bit of a personality clash in the paperwork. Only days earlier, she'd certified the case for compulsory arbitration, essentially keeping it low-key, but now she was clamoring for a jury. The litigation was rapidly becoming a more expensive, public, and complicated circus, and as we're about to see, it was also about to get a lot more professional. On August 23, 2021, Greg hires counsel. Woodnick Law officially entered the fray with Greg Woodnick and Casey Bowman taking the reins. The shift was immediate. From here on out, the litigation talk would bypass Greg Gillespie entirely, heading straight to the professionals. For Laura, the power dynamic shifted overnight. She wasn't just dealing with an ex anymore. She was up against experienced litigation counsel. On August 24, 2021, while the attorneys were busy stacking filings, a different set of records preserved the actual chaos: the text messages. According to later reports, Laura kept binding the pregnancy claims, the lawsuit, and the relationship into one messy bundle. Her texts were a chaotic montage of requests to date, demands for exclusivity, and threats of child support or police intervention. These exchanges are the smoking gun that proves the relationship, the legal battle, and the pregnancy claims weren't separate sagas. They were one big, intertwined disaster. Meanwhile, Greg's responses were those of a man who just wanted to be anywhere else. The more she messaged, the wider the canyon between these versions of reality became. From August 27th to the 31st, 2021, the final week of the month, delivered one last facepalm. On August 27th, Woodnick Law formally accepted service for Greg, finally putting the drama to bed, and starting the clock to respond to Laura's claim, which in Arizona is 20 days after service, which starts the day after. Or so we thought. 4 days later, Judge Allison Backus granted Laura's request for alternative service, approving a process that was completely obsolete because the lawyers had already handled it. The whole thing was a perfect snapshot of August 2021. A relationship dispute metastasized into a lawsuit, which then devolved into a pointless procedural slap fight. By the time the calendar flipped, it was clear this wasn't just a squabble. Both sides were already digging in for a much larger war. Act 15. The Three-Front War. By September 2021, the story had officially outgrown the messy breakup phase. Laura Owens was now playing a game on three separate fronts: the Gillespie litigation, the contractor war, and her own public-facing career. Over the next several months, these three tracks would stop running parallel and start colliding. Front 1. The Gillespie case. The heavy artillery arrived on September 24th. Woodnick Law filed a motion to dismiss that didn't just nitpick the details. It detonated the foundation. The defense laid it out cold. Upon information and belief, plaintiff is not pregnant. This wasn't some petty squabble over filing deadlines or missing commas. It was a direct shot at the heart of the entire lawsuit. If they were right, and spoiler alert, they were, the texts, the abortion allegations, the emotional distress claims, and the $45,000 price tag were all built on a house on sand. The only question left was simple: prove there's a baby, or face the music. Laura's move? She didn't produce a single shred of medical proof or a doctor's note. Instead, she filed a motion to seal, panicking that the public scrutiny might bruise her reputation and threaten an upcoming TEDx Women gig. Just like that, the litigation got a second front. The courtroom was no longer the only battlefield. The PR war had officially entered. Front 2. The contractor war. Because one suit wasn't enough, apparently, to satisfy the chaos quota, Laura was simultaneously going to war with a contractor named Sean Roanhorse and his company Lone Cactus Fencing and Welding. And no, this is not a metaphor. It's about literal horse arena dirt. We're talking footing depth, grading debacles, and alleged injuries to a horse named Scirocco 91, which Laura insisted was basically the horse equivalent of a gold mine. She was gunning for over $92,000. Pause here for a second, though, to appreciate the insane bandwidth on display here. We had a pregnancy lawsuit on one hand and an arena dirt vendetta on another, both active, both clogging up the dockets, and both demanding non-stop attention. Honestly, from a project management perspective, it's almost impressive. Almost.
All right. Because I saw Joy in chat with this story is nuts, you are not wrong. This story is absolutely insane. And when it was brought to my attention, thank you, Winks, because I was wrapping up a different project, she was like, you better be prepared because it's a lot of papers. And I was like, there's no way. I just got through Karen Reed. That was a lot of papers. I had no idea. This is not just papers. This is screenshots. It's videos. It's anything and everything you could think of to document things, and they've got it. And it's absolutely insane.
Front 3. The brand. Meanwhile, outside the courthouse, the third timeline was colliding with the first. Laura was busy polishing her public persona through a rotating door of advocacy work, podcasts, and networking. This isn't background noise. It's the key to why that motion to seal was more than just a standard legal procedure. It was pure reputation management. In the same month the defense started effectively calling her bluff in court, Laura was prepping for speaking gigs that hinged entirely on her credibility. She was trying to curate a professional image.
Unmute, that'd be helpful. This is a great question, Joy. Where did this chick get her money? She's never worked. She's never had a W-2. She's never turned in a 1099. She got her money from her parents. She lives on their property, rent-free, and just kind of does what she wants. And there's no ramifications for her actions. It's absolutely insane. They pay for everything, but she is the quote unquote face of the company, and that's why she gets paid. That's why they pay for her expenses. So, yeah.
While the legal foundation of her life was being dismantled. And those two realities were now hurling toward an inevitable crash. September 27th brought a procedural speed bump. Laura tried to secure a default judgment against Greg, but it didn't get very far. Remember when we told you back on August 27th, Woodnick Law formally accepted service on Greg's behalf, and that effectively put the can't find him drama to rest? Oh, and it started a 20-day clock for the defense to respond. Well, Judge Backus had to remind Laura that default judgments aren't just conjured into existence because you feel like it. They actually require, following the rules. It's a recurring motif in this mess. The court wasn't weighing in on who was right or who was wrong, but rather screaming into the void, "Please, for the love of everything, just follow the rules." Spoiler alert, Laura doesn't appear to recognize boundaries, regardless of where they come from. By the end of the month, Laura was managing a portfolio of chaos that would exhaust a Fortune 500 CEO, battling Greg in Superior Court, suing a contractor over arena dirt, grinding for speaking gigs, managing an active equestrian schedule, responding to a motion to dismiss, and desperately trying to scrub the public record. And she still found time to churn out even more paperwork. As observers, we don't have to pick a winner in this mess, but we do have to acknowledge the obvious. By September 2021, this wasn't a breakup. It was a full-blown, self-sustaining ecosystem of litigation. And October? Well, October was just getting warmed up to make it all significantly weirder. Act 16. The Paper Storm. By October 2021, the litigation had entered its more is more phase. The core questions remained, stubbornly simple.
Tony's Snow White in disguise. I think we just say that now. With all of the animals and the strays that just kind of show up. And I think it's great. Because we all need a Snow White in disguise.
But instead of focusing on the merits, the paperwork began to multiply like rabbits. Laura was fighting back. The defense was digging in. And the pure volume of filings was expanding at a pace that suggested nobody involved was particularly interested in a quick resolution. October 1st through the 13th. If September was a warm-up act, October was the moment the filing cabinet detonated. Woodnick Law stayed glued to their motion to dismiss, while Laura responded with a barrage of filings designed to attack the defense from every possible and impossible angle. We're talking deadlines, service drama, procedural gripes, a laundry list of fraud, perjury, and misconduct allegations. At this point, the docket stopped looking like civil litigation and started looking like someone was trying to fill out a legal bingo card. That leads us perfectly into one of my favorite side quests of this entire sprawling disaster. Every long-running legal saga inevitably spawns a bizarre subplot, and this one is no exception. It was born from a simple typo, a Scribner's error. A paralegal accidentally cited the Cocosino County instead of Maricopa County. It was fixed immediately, and a normal person would have spent all of 7 seconds thinking about it. Not Laura. Naturally, she spent considerably longer. That typo became the fuel for a new fire. Accusations of misconduct, frantic demands for records, and yet more motion practice. For a brief, headache-inducing moment, it looked like the Arizona County name slip-up was going to get more screen time than the actual lawsuit. As far as side quests go, Notary Gate was truly, deeply committed to the bit. While the parties were busy spiraling over procedural hiccups, the court remained obsessed with the much simpler concept: evidence. Judges tend to be allergic to conspiracy theories, obsessive email tracking, and administrative side quests. And this court was clearly losing its patience with the performative nonsense. That distinction is important because while the legal paperwork continued to multiply like a contagion, a completely separate and equally chaotic timeline was unfolding entirely outside the courtroom walls. From October 21st to the 24th, while emotions were flying across the docket, Laura was busy competing at the Arizona Fall Classic. And not just casually showing up, she was collecting hardware. She took first place in the equitation 18 to 35 flat. She took first place in the area National Adult Medal 3-foot. She took third place in the Greenway CEP Equitation Classic 3-foot. She took fourth place in the AHJA Children's Adult Medal 3-foot, and fourth place again in the AHJA Children's Adult Medal 3-foot. Note, while we are dissecting her history, it is important to be fair and clarify a detail regarding her equestrian activities. Contrary to rumors spread online, Laura has never entered competitions specifically for children. Horse shows often utilize child-adult divisions, like child-adult hunter or equitation, to ensure enough entries to hold a viable class, a common industry practice to maintain cost-effectiveness and group riders of similar skill levels. But these are distinct from exclusive youth-only competitions. And in the Arizona Fall Classic, yes, she was riding none other than Scirocco 91.
So I wanted to point this out real quick because I know I've seen it several places where the suggestion was that Laura was competing as a youth, and I had to make that clear in this video because it's kind of confusing in the horse world how it works, where sometimes they'll combine classes just so they can have enough people to enter into the competition.
Whom she continues to ride to this day. The very same horse currently at the center of that lone cactus fencing and welding lawsuit. The one where she claimed injury and a small fortune in potential losses. Side note, as this will become relevant later, Laura is listed as Scirocco 91's owner during this part of our timeline. This becomes a recurring theme in this saga. Just when the audience starts picturing Laura buried in a dark room under a mountain of legal filings, another horse show trophy pops up. It's frankly one of the most impressive feats in time management in the entire record. On October 25th, because remember, Greg wasn't the only one being sued.
The short answer to this, Winks, is yes. They would combine adult and children's classes because they needed to have enough riders in order to fill the spots. And if they didn't have enough riders, they would have to cancel that particular event, if that makes sense. So that's why you sometimes see the adult/youth or youth/adult in the horse event competition things.
And actively miscarrying. In this episode, we're reconstructing the timeline day by wretched day. We'll be dissecting court filings, police records, and writing records to see how a handful of dates morphed into years of litigation and conflict. If you're ready to follow the receipts, subscribe and join us in the jury box. A quick note. We're separating our saga out by acts, which we completely forgot to say in the last episode. We're picking up where we're supposed to be. Welcome in, everybody. Before we dismantle today's legal theatrics, you know the drill. Hit the buttons that make the internet happy.
Didn't do that.
Like, subscribe.
Where were we? Uh-oh.
Being a crumbling reality in court, the contract.
Anybody know what time we were on? Because I'm lost. Mm.
They were investigating actual criminal activity.
We might have
While
to
the
repeat a little bit.
paperwork
I don't know
suggests
exactly where we were.
Laura was
That was
operating under
weird.
the impression she was just curating exhibits for her next court filing. Spoiler alert, those two things are not even remotely the same. From November 18th to the 21st, 2021, Laura competed in the Arizona season finale. It was one of the year's strongest performances. She racked up. She was champion in the equitation 18 to 35 3-foot. She took first place in the equitation 18 to 35 flat, the equitation 18 to 35 OF 3-foot, and the Ariat National Adult Medal 3-foot. And she took third place in the US HJA Hunter 3-foot and the equitation 18 to 35 OF 3-foot. And of course, she was back on Scirocco 91, the same horse who was supposedly too injured by bad footing to function just weeks prior. This is where the timeline stops being a coincidence and starts being a punchline. Only days earlier, the court filings and police reports were dripping with tales of unrelenting fear, life-altering distress, and systematic harassment. Yet here we are again. Another horse show, another competition schedule, another collection of ribbons. You can draw whatever conclusions you wish about the distress here, but the calendar is what the calendar is.
Okay. Who wants to help me count the lawsuits? Let's see. She had one in 20, well, I don't know if that, yeah, one in 2014, and that person has decided to remain anonymous. She had Greg. Well, that wasn't really a lawsuit, that was a TRO. Mike was a TRO. She had the Lone Star lawsuit. So I think Lone Star was actually a lawsuit, and then Clayton was actually a lawsuit. So, is that it? There was also another victim in there somewhere who has also decided to remain anonymous. Ah, yes, she did have the abortion coercion lawsuit with Greg. You're right. Thank you, Tony. That's absolutely correct. I forgot about that one.
It's hard to be a victim of constant harassment when you're spending your weekends consistently.
Oh, good one. That's, yes, CLT Doc. She did. She had the pony lawsuit with Sweetenham, and how could I forget that one? Because she completely said that this horse was a horse that was born in a certain year, and it wasn't. It was born the year prior because she wanted to hide the fact that it was a problem horse. That's right. Oh, yeah, and Uber. She was in an Uber accident and claimed injuries later, and meanwhile, she is show jumping horses, but she settles with Uber, and Uber really dropped the ball, in my opinion. There's so many.
Winning in the show ring. By the end of November, Laura had achieved a level of multi-hyphenate madness that's honestly impactful. She continued the Gillespie.
I didn't even mention the bankruptcies because I haven't gotten there yet, so it's not even in my brain. The parents had a bankruptcy, I think, in 2011. They have something currently going on, and so does Laura, correct? I think that's right. And I think they've tried to file for bankruptcy several times.
Litigation, kept up the vendetta against her contractor, pumped out fresh police reports, fueled the endless motion practice fire, dominated the Arizona show circuit on an injured horse, naturally, prepped for her big December public-facing debut. And the truly staggering part, the story was still in its infancy. Because next up was the public-facing version of Laura Owens, the one destined for a TEDx stage. That version of the narrative was about to collide head-on with the messy reality unfolding in the courts. And I think we all know that collision wasn't going to be pretty. Act
Yes, she did. As well as a few other creators, if I'm not mistaken. Because I think she also did the stuff with, didn't she send stuff to Megan Fox and to um, Steve? And my brain just stopped working. Um, who's the other one? I forget. She sent letters to a lot of different creators to stop talking about her, like cease and desist type things.
17. The Public Story. By December 2021, Laura Owens was fighting a multi-front war. The Gillespie litigation
That's the one. Thank you, Winks. I knew it started with a D.
was active. The contractor vendetta was active. A mountain of police reports, endless motion practice, and judges issuing rulings. But while the legal system was drowning in her paperwork, Laura was busy organizing a different version of reality. She wasn't working the courtroom. She was working the stage. And her public-facing narrative was about to collide with the facts in a way that promised to be as disastrous as it was inevitable. This is the TEDx timeline. If you've been following this dumpster fire for any length of time, you've noticed the pattern. Laura doesn't just litigate, she narrates. In December 2021, she stepped onto a TEDx Women's stage to deliver a polished, emotional, deeply personal story about surviving abuse and the power of radical kindness. To the uninitiated, it's compelling. You see a survivor, an advocate, and a woman who emerged from a terrifying relationship ready to change the world. It's a story with a classic setup, a clear protagonist, a definitive villain, and a tidy moral. And that's not a criticism of her storytelling.
Yes, Joy. She did a TEDx talk, and she tried to say that her relationship with Michael Maricini was abusive, and that he hit her, and that he choked her, and that he did some like domination type things involved with it. It was a whole big mess that is not true. At least not from what I've witnessed of Michael Maricini. He seems like a very nice man who would never lay a finger on somebody in anger like that.
That's literally how good public speaking works. After all, nobody is buying a ticket for a TEDx called, well, it's complicated and there probably are multiple perspectives. Here's the catch. While Laura was busy auditioning for Advocate of the Year on stage, the Maricopa County court system was having a much more awkward conversation. Woodnick Law had already served up a motion to dismiss, and the court was beginning to poke holes in everything from her pregnancy claims to the general credibility of her evidence. As a result, Laura had recently begged the court to seal the record. A weird move for someone so eager to tell her story. By December 2021, two completely incompatible narratives were racing toward a collision. The curated on-stage version and
This is actually going to come up in this video, so yes, Winks, you're absolutely correct. She did claim that, and it was completely false.
the chaotic reality-checked version in court. Spoiler, they weren't going to remain parallel long. One theme appears repeatedly throughout the TEDx presentation: image and perception versus reality. The irony is staggering. While Laura was on stage,
You can ask all the questions you want. That's part of the reason I'm doing this, is so that more people can see it and hear about it. And we have people in chat that can answer all of your questions to get everything kind of straightened away so you get an idea of what we're dealing with. And you're correct. It's like all of them combined. It's crazy.
lamenting the hidden struggles behind appearances, she was simultaneously in court fighting to hide actual evidence. The motion to seal wasn't just procedural, it was a desperate battle for narrative control. It was never about a fair trial. It was about who gets to form the facts and bury the truth. Who gets to tell the story? Which documents get to be seen? Which facts get emphasized? And which version becomes the one people remember? As we will discover over the next year, those questions become increasingly important. The beauty of a TEDx talk is that it's designed for pure, unadulterated storytelling, not pesky little things like cross-examination. You get one voice, one polished perspective, and absolutely zero interruptions. There's no judge, no objections, and certainly no opposing counsel asking those inconvenient evidence-based questions. It's not a courtroom, it's a stage. And stages
I'm not sure about Brave Bob, but I will take it. Thank you very much.
serve a very different purpose. The goal isn't to test a claim for truth. That would be tedious. The goal is to sell a narrative. Again, not a criticism, it's just the format. But when you're peddling a fairy tale on stage while actively litigating a crumbling reality in court, the contrast isn't just interesting, it's performative gaslighting. By the end of 2021, we were dealing with a double feature of Laura Owens. There was Courtroom Laura, the one buried in a mountain of police reports, service disputes, and a civil lawsuit that was spiraling into total chaos. And then there was TEDx Laura, the polished, saintly survivor packaged for audiences who would never dream of actually looking at the messy reality of the Maricopa County docket. For a hot minute, she managed to keep these two worlds from colliding, but not for long. Come January,
I mean, you can always take me in the bathroom with you and turn the volume up really loud. That could work. Also, Peachy, please enjoy the concert, because live music is amazing.
2022, the gloves finally come off. The paper storm escalated into a full-blown hurricane, and for the first time in this saga, Greg stopped playing defense. He decided to swing back. When we come back, the litigation changes drastically, because Greg's attorneys are about to stop responding to allegations and start making some of their own. Act 18. The Counterattack. For nearly 5 months, Greg has been stuck in a permanent crouch, playing defense against an endless barrage of allegations, filings, and theatrical accusations. January 2022, however, finally flipped the script. On January 4th, Greg stopped acting like a defendant desperately trying to stay upright and started acting like a plaintiff who was finally ready to go on the offensive. And trust me, the atmosphere in the courtroom changed immediately. Because on January 4th, Woodnick Law dropped a verified answer and counterclaim, which in plain English means, not only do I deny your nonsense, I'm officially calling you out for yours. Greg didn't pull his punches either. He hit her with claims of intentional infliction of emotional distress, defamation, and malicious prosecution. But let's be real, no one really cared about the legal jargon. All of their eyes were glued to the part about the ultrasound. Remember that August 6th ultrasound? The one that birthed an entire cinematic universe of drama? It's back. And it's graduated from a sketchy text to a verified court filing. Greg essentially accused Laura of forging a sonogram to fake a pregnancy. Once that allegation hit the record, it officially stopped being a he said, she said, and became a potential perjury nightmare. As anyone who has spent 5 minutes in a courtroom knows, once a lie enters the docket, it tends to take on a life of its own, and usually, that life is short and brutal. The ultrasound was just the appetizer. The counterclaim also nuked the law firm problem. Laura allegedly name-dropped the high-profile firm Cotchett, Peter, and McCarthy to add some muscle to her narrative, only for the firm to seemingly have no clue what she was talking about. If true, this is the legal equivalent of a siren. Lawyers, as it turns out, generally get incredibly twitchy when they realize the counsel on the other side might be a figment of someone's imagination. This is where the entire case shifts from a sideshow to a collision course. Before January 4th, the only question was, did Greg do what Laura claimed? After this date, the room got a lot more crowded with the, oh yeah? Well, did Laura do what Greg claimed? Question. From here on, both sides are hurling serious accusations, demanding money, and, most importantly, fighting a desperate clawing battle for a shred of credibility. And let's just say, the courtroom environment started to feel less professional and more full-blown cage match.
Thank you, Martine. I appreciate this comment. Yeah, this is actually something that I had a conversation about with a few people, and Llama was one of them. And she said, if you can make it clear for people, that'd be great. And so I had to take that opportunity and make sure that we are reporting facts and not speculation or things that are not true. So, thank you.
At the same time, Greg's team dropped a certificate of compulsory arbitration, a fancy term for boring but necessary. It essentially dragged the case out of the land of dramatic storytelling and into the world of actual evidence, where facts matter more.
Well, funny you should ask, because if you guys can hear ice in the background, my daughter has a headache, and so she's getting herself something to drink. Um, Funny you should ask. Joy is actually getting ready to set up a channel. It's not fully up yet, but she will be, so keep an eye out for that one.
More than whatever narrative sounds best on a TEDx stage. Which brings us to the real theme of this entire dumpster fire. Again, evidence. Everyone claims to have it, but few people realize that evidence has to survive the brutal reality of actual scrutiny. And let's just say, the scrutiny was officially headed for the front door. On January 6, 2022, faced with a counterclaim that threatened to torch the entire narrative, Laura did what Laura does best. She pivoted to the contractor case and dumped a massive motion for summary judgment against Lone Cactus. Attached were 121 exhibits, because apparently filing documents has become her new favorite endurance sport. From construction records and photos to the ever-present drama over Scirocco 91, she threw everything but the kitchen sink at the wall. And just like that, the horse arena makes its grand return. Because no matter how much the pregnancy litigation spiraled, that arena was always waiting in the wings to prove that, yes, even bad dirt can be a life-altering crisis. Among the exhibits were claims involving Scirocco 91, a horse supposedly so high value that construction defects and presumably the state of the dirt tanked its competitive career. We're talking massive damages for arena footing and correcting conditions. Now, horse people will tell you that the wrong footing is potentially a one-way ticket to lameness and a crying bank account. It's the kind of drama that only makes sense if you're deep in the equestrian trenches, which I'm not, or just looking for a new line item in a lawsuit. Honestly, you have to appreciate the audacious variety here. Pregnancy claims, counterclaims, protection orders, police reports, and million-dollar hunter-jumper drama. Keeping track of this saga wouldn't just require a spreadsheet. It would require cockpit controls of a 747 and a very stiff drink.
So I do want to clarify that I am not big into the horse world. I do have a family member that was a championship barrel racer and owned horses, and some of that stuff will come up later, I'm sure, as we continue on this path. And so I've done a lot of homework, and I do appreciate the people in chat that are involved in that world that are backing up what I've found for the video. So thank you guys.
January 22nd, 2022, when Laura finally addressed the counterclaim, she leaned heavily on a classic defense. I gave him my medical portal access, so I couldn't possibly be lying. Her logic was charmingly simple. Why would a faker voluntarily open the gates to their own health records? The defense naturally saw it as a desperate bit of theater rather than a genuine act of transparency. They didn't buy the Innocent Patient Act for a second, and predictably, that disagreement kept this litigation train hurtling toward a cliff. By the end of January 2022, Greg had finally stopped playing defense. The ultrasound was officially a legal headache. The contractor case was burying everyone in 121 exhibits, and the $1 million horse was back to haunt the docket. Both sides were hurling misconduct charges like they were on sale, and the volume of paperwork had officially hit bureaucratic nightmare levels. The good news? February was coming. The bad news? That's when the judges start digging. And as any seasoned observer knows, when a judge finally gets involved, somebody's carefully curated narrative is about to hit a brick wall. Act 19. The cracks in the machine. By February 2022, the machine was still running, the filings were still coming, and the accusations were still flying. The paperwork was still reproducing like rabbits, but for the first time, cracks were beginning to appear.
Is that bridge in Brooklyn? Just asking for a friend.
And they were appearing everywhere. On February 3rd, there was a Tier 2 problem. The Gillespie saga had officially outgrown its simple breakup phase. Laura and Woodnick Law hit the mandatory Rule 16 conference and begrudgingly agreed to Tier 2 status. Translation: the case was officially too massive for a standard courtroom pace. Tier 2 is where cases go when they require excessive time, discovery, and enough judicial oversight to keep a judge awake at night. Basically, both sides had manufactured enough text messages, medical records, and contradictory narratives to keep an entire firm of paralegals chained to their desks indefinitely. This wasn't just a breakup anymore. It was a full-scale document hoarding competition. On February 4th, 2022, we have a strategic retreat. The next day, reality finally crashed the party. Laura voluntarily dumped her claims tied to Arizona's criminal domestic violence statute. Why? Because the law didn't actually offer the civil remedy she was banking on. In plain English, her legal theory was a dud. It's a rare, refreshing moment where the case actually started narrowing rather than expanding. It wasn't a change of heart, of course. It was just the cold, hard realization that even in a chaotic courtroom, you eventually have to stop trying to sue people under laws that don't actually exist. On the contractor front, of course, because balance is apparently illegal in this timeline, while one front shrunk, the other exploded. The same day, Laura filed a motion to compel and for sanctions against Sean Roanhorse, alleging he'd cooked the construction books. We've officially hit the delightful stage of the saga where everyone is accusing everyone else of being a fraud. At this point, the courts are just trying to sort through the pile of grievances to figure out which dumpster fire actually needs extinguishing. On February 7th, we have a money problem. The contractor litigation blessed us with one of the most unhinged filings yet. Roanhorse's attorney revealed that Laura allegedly demanded exactly $441.44.
Thank you for this Boots on the Ground. I wanted to read it for those that are audio only. Boots on the Ground is letting us know that for those of us that don't know, the hock shots that Laura claimed she had to get her horses is normal maintenance and healthcare for jumping horses, and usually starts when they get to their teens in age. So that's good to know. Thank you.
Not 44,000. Not 45,000. A number so oddly specific it feels like it was calculated by an accountant who hadn't slept in 3 days. According to the filing, she allegedly threatened harassment complaints and criminal charges if the check didn't clear, sending Roanhorse running to the Registrar of Contractors for cover.
If anyone is in Holt, Williamson, or Mason, Michigan, please get to safety. You have a tornado warning. Thank you, text packet.
Whether those allegations are actually true is, of course, disputed. But they're now officially on the record. It's starting to look like these cases are just different flavors of the same everyone is out to get me fever dream. On February 10th, the judge hits the brakes. This is the first real sign that Judge Sarah Agne's patience had officially evaporated. She denied Laura's motion to compel and for sanctions, with prejudice. In lawyer speak, that means no, and don't even think about asking me again. The judge didn't stop there. She barred Laura from filing any more discovery motions without prior permission. It's the judicial equivalent of slapping childproof locks on the kitchen cabinets to stop a toddler from making a mess. For the first time, the court wasn't simply denying relief. The court was limiting future behavior. That's a different level of concern. On February 11th, we have a pronoun investigation. We get hit with one of the weirder police reports in this entire dumpster fire. Laura contacted the Scottsdale PD to claim a breach of her injunction against harassment, based solely on a text from an unknown number. Her smoking gun? The sender used the word I, which she insisted could only mean Greg was behind the keyboard. The responding officer took one look at the text, then at the complaint, and reached a conclusion that's about to become a recurring theme. There was absolutely zero evidence connecting that message to Greg. Case closed. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Scottsdale Police Department's brief but memorable Grammar Crimes Division. On February 15th, we have an offensive. If January was Greg's counterattack, February was the full-scale invasion. Woodnick Law filed to toss out Laura's abortion coercion claim, arguing that the statute she was clinging to was meant to regulate medical conduct, not to give disgruntled exes a shiny new way to use it. But they didn't stop there. The defense notified the Attorney General, the Speaker of the House, and the President of the Senate for the state of Arizona, essentially arguing that if Laura's wild interpretation of the law held any weight, the law itself was a constitutional disaster. It's the legal version of saying, we're not just right, we're pointing out that your entire premise is a dumpster fire. The litigation had now expanded way beyond Greg and Laura. When you start CCing the state government on your pleadings, it's pretty safe bet that things aren't exactly calming down. From February 25th to the 28th, we go on some lawyer shopping. Facing a looming deadline, Laura begged the court for more time, claiming she needed breathing room to hire counsel. Reasonable, right? Not according to Woodnick Law. The defense fired back, accusing her of playing games and attaching receipts they claimed proved her history of creative storytelling regarding her legal team. Specifically, they brought up her supposed ties to Cotchett, Peter, and McCarthy. And the firm essentially told the defense, who? We've officially entered the stage of the saga where lawyers are busy investigating whether other lawyers even exist. Not exactly a ringing endorsement of your credibility. By the end of February, the hits kept coming. A major claim was kicked to the curb, judges were slamming child-proof locks on filing cabinets, and the police were tired of being the personal drama police. Meanwhile, the contractor case was a full-blown war zone, constitutional questions were crashing the Gillespie party, and the defense was busy nuking Laura's credibility for sport. But the real plot twist? The system itself was finally pushing back. Not Greg, not the peanut gallery, but the actual machinery of the court. And when the system stops playing along, your margin for error shrinks to about the size of a postage stamp. March is where the revolving door starts spinning. And if you think the lawyer drama is high now, just wait. You're about to need a scorecard. Act 20. The Lawyer Revolving Door. By March 2022, the litigation had reached an interesting stage. The courts were pushing back. The defense was pushing harder. Deadlines were approaching. Claims were being challenged, and Laura had identified a solution. A lawyer. Unfortunately, that solution would prove temporary. On March 4th, 2022, enter Zachary Mushkatel, an attorney finally stepping up to represent Laura after months of her playing pro se lawyer. On paper, it looked like a total game changer. The case was ballooning. The stakes were sky high, and someone with an actual bar license was finally steering the ship. Problem solved, right? Or so it appeared. The same day, Laura filed yet another request for more time. This time, to hunt down an expert witness. Given that the entire case had devolved into a frantic scavenger hunt for medical records and legitimate timelines, experts were kind of a big deal. She needed the extension. The search would continue, and the hunt for a credible professional was officially on. But before anyone could get comfortable with this fresh attorney-client setup, something truly remarkable happened. March 10th, 2022. 6 days later, Mushkatel filed a motion to withdraw. 6 days. That's not a typo, and it's definitely not a record you want your legal team holding. He entered the case on March 4th, and was sprinting for the exit by March 10th. Just like that, the revolving door had completed its first rotation. As observers, we don't need to know the dirty details behind the scenes. The timeline does the heavy lifting for us. A major attorney appearance turning into a get me out of here request in less time than it takes to binge watch a Netflix series is frankly a masterclass in reading the room. March 11th, 2022, and a judicial timeout. Back in the contractor litigation, Judge Agne's patience had officially...
Thank you for the 20 winks, I appreciate it.
hit 0. She swatted away Laura's animal safety motion to compel, effectively telling her that using horse welfare to bypass standard discovery is a hard pass. Then the judge dropped the hammer. A May 16 deadline for the necessary paperwork, or the case gets the boot. For the first time, this contractor saga had a literal expiration date stamped on it. The clock wasn't just ticking. It was loud enough for everyone to hear. Oh, look. Laura has a new attorney making an appearance on March 21st. I wonder how long this one will stay around.
So the video is actually a recording. I'm just pausing it every so often to chat.
Now, here is where things get truly delicious. While all of this legal chaos was unfolding, the attorney ghostings, the expert witness scavenger hunts, and the judges practically begging for a dismissal deadline, there was a whole other calendar humming along in the background. The horse show calendar. And unlike the litigation dumpster fire, that one appeared to be functioning absolutely beautifully. It's almost as if some people find it easier to manage a stable of million-dollar horses than they do, basic legal reality. From March 24th to the 27th, just 20 days after an alleged assault featured in the court records, Laura was back in the ring at the Scottsdale Spring Festival.
Well, see, if you guys were in the background, you would understand that I can't just read this like this and not make mistakes, and then curse at my microphone because I've made mistakes. So I have to do something.
Her results? Second place, times 2, in the low adult hunter 2 foot 6 inch, and fourth place in the THIS NHS adult equitation 3 foot. It's not about the ribbons. It's about the fact that we're watching two entirely different realities playing out on the same calendar. One features court filings screaming of distress and legal emergencies. The other features
Well, we know it's not Laura. So maybe Ron. I don't know.
a serene day at the horse show. And you jurors can interpret the dichotomy however you like, but the overlap is impossible to ignore. On March 25th, back in court, the attorney to withdraw becomes official. So, shocker, Laura is back to flying solo. The expert witness situation is still a mess. The motion to dismiss is still hanging over her head, and the litigation is chugging along. But don't worry. While her legal life is actively imploding, the horse show schedule never seems to miss a beat. It's almost like one of those things is actually a priority. From March 30th to April 4th came another horse show, and a 9-class competitive marathon with Scirocco 91 at the Scottsdale Spring Classic. The hardware haul was pretty impressive. She took 6th place in the USHJA Hunter 3-foot, 7th place in the Adult Amateur Hunter 18 to 35 3-foot, champion in the Equitation 18 and over free-foot, 2nd place in the Equitation 18 and over OF 3-foot, 1st place in the Equitation 18 and over OF 3-foot, the Equitation 18 and over flat, the Ariat National Adult Medal 3-foot, and the THIS NHS Adult Equitation 3-foot, and 3rd place in the Greenway CEP Equitation Classic 3-foot. This isn't just a casual appearance. It's a full-time athletic schedule. You'd think someone supposedly drowning in legal emergencies and strategic crises would have a hard time finding the bandwidth for 9 classes, but apparently the show must go on. It's fascinating what you can accomplish when your legal disasters don't seem to interfere with your ability to collect ribbons. This is one of those moments where the timeline is far more savage than any commentary I could possibly provide, and the rundown of March. On March 4th, we get I Need an Expert Witness. On March 10th, actually, never mind, my lawyer is out. On March 11th, the judge starts handing out warnings and deadlines like party favors. From March 24th to the 27th, we're off to a horse show. On March 25th, the attorney withdrawal is finalized, and on March 30th to April 4th, we're back in the horse ring. The calendar is what it is, and frankly, it's doing all the talking for me. By early April 2022, the scorecard was in. Laura had hired counsel. Laura had fired or lost counsel. The expert witness situation was still a dumpster fire. The court-imposed deadlines in the contractor case were a ticking time bomb. Meanwhile, the defense was sharpening its knives. But the horse show schedule? Still thriving. Scirocco 91 was out there collecting ribbons while the legal walls were closing in. A pattern had emerged that you'd have to be blind to miss. Every time a legal front buckled or her credibility took a nosedive, it was the same old song and dance. A frantic pivot to a new target. Desperate pleas for more time. A revolving door of lawyers to stall the inevitable. The machine was churning. The paperwork was piling up. and the story was about to get blown wide open. Spring 2022 was the season where judges started setting firm expiration dates on the chaos, and honestly, the only thing Laura seemed to be winning was blue ribbons. Act 21. The calendar collision. As she scrambles to deal with these tightening court deadlines, Laura hits the California Equestrian Trail for another high-volume competitive stretch. Usually, lawsuits follow a predictable path. Claims shrink, people get exhausted, and lawyers start whispering the dreaded words, reasonable compromise. But not here. By spring 2022, the Owens Gillespie circus has entered a bizarre new dimension. As the legal walls closed in, the motions got deadlier. The judges' patience evaporated. The horse show calendar was somehow still running at full throttle. Apparently, while the rest of the world was busy with actual legal stakes, someone else was busy making sure the equestrian schedule didn't miss a single beat. In April 2022 kicked off with a Hail Mary pass to save the abortion coercion claim. On April 8th, attorney Carrie Ramos filed a response to the motion to dismiss, trying to keep the dream alive by fixating on how toxic the relationship was. The problem? Woodnick Law wasn't arguing about whether the relationship was a train wreck. They were arguing that the law didn't actually support the claims. It's a classic case of talking past each other. By April 12th, the defense dropped the hammer, pointing out that Laura had completely whiffed on the actual legal defects. They also hit on the elephant in the room. 8 months in, the discovery pile was still suspiciously thin. The defense's message was loud and clear. Stop crying about feelings and answer the damn legal questions. April 17th came oral argument. If you've never seen attorneys try to shove a square peg of a fact into a round hole of a statute, imagine watching someone attempt to parallel park a cruise ship. It was just as graceful as that sounds. The defense pointed out that the alleged coercion actually happened after the medication was taken. It's a bit of a deal breaker, considering the statute is about coercing an abortion, not bickering about it after the fact. The hearing made it painfully clear. The gap between Laura's dramatic narrative and what the law actually requires is a canyon. For the first time, the case's utter lack of substance wasn't just being whispered in filings. It was being put on blast in open court. On April 27th, the court pressed forward, entering a scheduling order to set settlement conference. Translation: nobody was getting off of this ride yet. And in May 2022, we have a little bit of a California detour. While the Arizona litigation ground forward, Laura headed west for the Blenheim Ranch and Coast Horse Show in San Juan Capistrano. And we aren't talking a casual weekend outing. She entered 11 classes. At this point, her horse show schedule deserves its own platinum frequent flyer account. And here was her haul. She took 3rd, 7th, and 8th place in the Adult Amateur Hunters 18 to 35, and 6th place in the Equitation Flat 18 and over. She also racked up a collection of non-placements and elimination, because she must have done something wrong, and a few did not starts. But let's keep our eyes on the real prize. While her lawyer was busy sweating over statutes, motions, and discovery obligations in Arizona, Laura was busy campaigning the California circuit. It's truly a gift to be able to juggle a legal implosion and an equestrian career simultaneously. Most of us would have just picked a hobby that didn't involve quite so much collateral damage. Now we've reached the May 16th deadline, the piece de resistance of this timeline, the ultimate calendar collision. Judge Sarah Agnew had set a firm dismissal deadline in the contractor case for May 16th. The very next morning after, Laura wrapped up her 11-class California horse show on May 15th. Talk about an ambitious itinerary. Most people would struggle to coordinate a flight and a hotel checkout, but Laura was busy ping-ponging between equestrian glory and a high-stakes legal cliffhanger. It takes a special kind of talent to treat a critical litigation deadline like a minor pit stop on the way back from the stables. We've reached June 2022, and that came with a moment that perfectly captures this dumpster fire. The case died, and then somehow it didn't. On June 8th, the court entered a judgment of dismissal for lack of prosecution. For one beautiful, fleeting moment, it looked like the litigation between Laura Owens and Greg Gillespie had finally run out of runway. 5 days later, attorney Carrie Ramos filed a motion to withdraw, which is easily the most rational decision made in this entire saga. But then came June 23rd, and the court performed a little legal necromancy via a nunc-pro-tunc order. The dismissal was vacated, and the case was dragged back from the grave. Congratulations, everyone! The lawsuit is officially undead. July was defined by one burning question. Could Carrie Ramos actually make her escape? The answer was yes, but only after an exhausting parade of filings, supplements, and procedural detours. The first exit request got the boot, prompting a desperate sequel, then even more explanations. By July 27th, the court finally mercy granted the withdrawal. Ramos was officially off the hook, leaving Laura to represent herself yet again. And because this saga is nothing if not predictable, there was a meanwhile. You guessed it, the horse shows didn't miss a beat. Clearly, legal representation is optional, but equestrian participation is non-negotiable. On July 20th to the 24th, we have the Blenheim Summer Festival. Laura competed in 7 classes. She had multiple placements, another Ariat medal finish, and an additional Hunter placements. And then from July 27th to the 31st, she was at the Blenheim Racing Festival in 3 more classes. 4th place in the Ariat medal, additional Hunter placements, more ribbons, more travel, more competition. By late July, the scorecard was a mess. The motion to dismiss was still looming, the contractor suit was somehow still breathing, and the case had successfully cheated death via legal necromancy. Carrie Ramos finally managed to jump ship, citing that representation would violate the rules, leaving Laura to handle things pro se again. And naturally, the California horse show circuit was still firing on all cylinders. Then, August arrived, and the narrative took a sharp turn. Up until now, we were dealing with standard breakup drama. But in August, the story stopped playing like a typical lawsuit and decided to pivot straight into a low-budget conspiracy thriller. Buckle up. Act 22. The Espionage Pivot. Every long-running saga eventually reaches a point where the audience pauses and says, "Wait, we're doing what now?" For this story, that moment arrives in August 2022, because up until now, the litigation had largely revolved around familiar territory: relationships, pregnancy claims, text messages, protective order, horse shows. August introduces something new: conspiracies. August 1st, 2022, and the email. It begins with an ex parte email, which for the uninitiated is basically the legal equivalent of walking into a judge's chambers and screaming "surprise" into their morning coffee. Judges and assistants notoriously loathe these little pop-ins, but that didn't stop Laura. She dropped an email directly to Judge Backus's assistant, containing allegations that would make a tabloid writer blush. She claimed that back on March 4th, 2022, she was drugged, assaulted, and left for dead. Obviously, that's heavy. But the email didn't just stop at personal trauma. It hit the gas and launched into a full-blown fever dream. Laura alleged that Greg Gillespie and his attorney Greg Woodnick were running a covert operation with her ex, Mike Maricini, to sabotage her lawsuit. We aren't talking about simple bad blood anymore. We're talking international corporate espionage levels of delusion. The FBI got a shout out. Multiple states were dragged into the mess, and
This story absolutely makes me sick. And we aren't even halfway through it, which is the crazy part. Because, how did it get so far? You know, and I get why Mike didn't say anything, and I get why Greg kind of hung back. But at some point, you have to do something. And her parents knew what was going on, and they chose not to act, and they continue to enable her. And I hate that for, they started this very young. It's a disservice to Laura to be raised that way. She never learned boundaries and whatnot. And that's what created this. And so she evidently got away with a bunch of stuff when she was younger, is my guess. That's my opinion. And unfortunately, that's what got us here. It's just, I don't know. Yeah, it's a lot.
there were wild claims of coordinated efforts everywhere. At this point, the genre shift is complete. We've officially moved from breakup lawsuit to low-budget conspiracy thriller. Also, side note, if you remember and you go back, you will hear me say that 20 days after she claimed she was assaulted, she was at a horse show, claiming ribbons. And here's the response. The judicial assistant did what judicial assistants generally do when surprise litigation emails appear in their inbox. She explained why the communication was improper.
Yes, you do appeals. I know that we were talking in DM earlier about me doing videos. And yeah, this one is a lot. This is the third installment. Please feel free to go back and watch the other two. I also highly recommend the podcast Love Trapped. It was really done very well and will give you a lot of the information and catch you up pretty quickly. It's pretty easy to just plug it in and listen.
And then she copied opposing counsel, which is a wonderfully efficient way to turn a private complaint into a shared problem. On August 2nd, we get the court's answer. Judge Backus shut down Laura's desperate plea for a 60-day extension the very next day after this.
Well, Barbecue Queen, this is my first actual live, so I'm glad that you were here. Thank you.
Email. The timing is absolute gold. Less than 24 hours after she dumped a fire hose of wild claims about assaults, grand conspiracies, and federal investigations onto the court's desk, the judge was still hyper-focused on a far more pedestrian problem. Deadlines. Judges are just precious that way. No matter how hard you try to pivot to a high-octane thriller, they're still going to insist that you actually turn in your homework on time. But because this timeline is allergic to common sense,
she just stayed in her casita. They didn't see her. Of course. That's why.
Laura immediately jetted back to California for the Blenheim August Festival from August 2nd to the 7th. She entered 8 classes and actually managed to rack up some hardware while her legal life was allegedly exploding into a federal conspiracy thriller. Here was her loot. She took 3 second-place finishes in the Adult Amateur Hunters, Under Saddle, and the Hunter Classic. She took 2 third places in the Ariat and the USEF Adult Medals, and she took 5th, 6th, and 7th places in various other Hunter and Medal classes. Apparently, when you're busy dodging the FBI and uncovering vast sabotage rings, the best way to handle the stress is to keep jumping fences. Who needs a coherent legal strategy when you've got a trophy cabinet to fill? As always, the timeline is not making commentary.
So I want to touch on this real quick. Thank you, Winks, because you reminded me I need to put the links down in the description. I will do that as soon as this is done. Um, yeah, so we were talking about Love Trapped and catching up on this whole saga for the new viewers that are not familiar with this case. What you will find is that I am covering this differently than some of the previous creators, and the only reason I can do that is because of them. So I'm super thankful that they came before me. Um, what I'm doing differently is I'm going back to the beginning of the timeline and just going through chronologically. A lot of them started from when this became a story, really, and that was with the Bachelor Clayton Echard. And so as information was unfolding and being found out, that's kind of how the episodes went. And so that's what's making me different, is showing the timeline. But I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those people that came before me.
The timeline is simply existing. On August 9th, 2022, we get a new lawyer. After the departure of Carrie Ramos, new counsel arrived. Kyle O'Dwyer entered the case. At this point, attorneys were beginning to resemble guest stars on a television series. Some lasted longer than others. And this one, for this case, is Laura's third.
I appreciate that boots on the ground. I was not aware when I first started this that the horse shows were not something that was covered at the same time as the other, like the legal stuff and all the things that were happening with the fake pregnancies and all that stuff. And I'm glad that I can provide like the horse shows and how that intermixes with, hey, she says she was injured, or hey, she says she was pregnant when she really wasn't. So thank you.
August 11th, 2022, we have a hearing for the motion to dismiss. Or at least the hearing that was supposed to happen, because O'Dwyer had barely inherited the case before finding himself standing in court. He requested a continuance, and the court granted it. The hearing moved to August 17th, and everyone received another week to prepare. This gives the defense more time to tighten the net. Woodnick Law kept doing the work that actually matters, building the record. They officially served the Attorney General and the legislative leadership regarding the constitutional issues tied to the abortion coercion claim. It's dry, technical, and boring, which is exactly why it's so lethal. This was a major power move. The defense wasn't just poking holes in Laura's personal drama anymore. They were arguing that her entire interpretation of the statute was constitutionally radioactive. The fight had officially outgrown the toxic X stage and entered the setting legal precedent arena. But from August 16th to the 21st, Laura's at the summer festival. Naturally, the calendar did its thing, and Laura did hers. Another horse show, another 11 classes, and the usual collection of ribbons. This time the hall, 3rd and 8th place in the Ariat Adult Medal, 7th place in the USEF Adult Hunt Seat Medal, 7th place in the Adult Amateur Hunters 18 to 35, and 10th place in the Adult Amateur Hunter Classic. Honestly, the horse show circuit is the only thing in this entire chaotic timeline with any real.
Thank you, Ozzy. I've seen some of your coverage as well, and I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Work ethic. Attorneys for Laura seem to come and go, legal theories morph into whatever fever dream hits next, but the horses, Scirocco and Resilient, just keep showing up. It's almost impressive how consistent she is about ignoring her legal train wreck in favor of another round of jumping fences. We've reached August 17th in the midst of Laura's jumping fences, and this was the oral argument. This is where the reality begins pressing back. The defense focused on a simple question. Could the abortion coercion statute even apply to the facts alleged? Their position was straightforward. The law regulated medical providers. It was not intended to govern post-breakup arguments between private citizens. Judge Backus repeatedly pushed for clarity. At one point, the discussion became so tangled that the court began exploring hypothetical situations simply to determine how the statute would function under Laura's interpretation. It was one of those hearings where everyone involved appears to realize there are several layers deeper into the weeds than originally intended. After hearing argument, Judge Backus took the matter under advisement, which put simply is judicial language for "I need a minute." Actually, in this case, 60 days. By the end of August 2022, the case had morphed into a full-blown circus. The conspiracy allegations had officially entered the record, and a new attorney had jumped into the fire, presumably because they either love a good challenge or had a masochistic tolerance for chaos. Meanwhile, the motion to dismiss remained trapped in legal purgatory, while the defense successfully expanded their constitutional challenge, turning what started as a messy breakup into a legitimate debate over the scope of the law. Through all of this, the horse shows remained the only thing in this timeline that actually stuck to a schedule. As for the court, Judge Backus officially took the matter under advisement, which is just a very polite judicial way of saying, I need 60 days to contemplate the sheer, unadulterated absurdity of it all. Enter September 2022, and the waiting period. After the August hearing, the case hit a strange, stagnant phase. Briefs were filed, arguments were exhausted, and everyone, the defense, Laura, and the court, was stuck in a 2-month holding pattern. The central question hung in the air. Would the abortion coercion claim actually survive? Or was the lawsuit's foundation about to crumble into dust? Meanwhile, because obviously there's always a meanwhile, the horse show circuit kept humming along with the kind of machine-like precision that this legal disaster could only dream of. Attorneys might panic, but the show jumps wait for no one.
I appreciate that. I actually don't have anything for her to target in filings, so let her come at me. I mean, there's nothing there, and she's not going to get anything out of me. She can file stuff, and it's going to go nowhere.
From September 21st to the 25th, Laura's at the Blenheim International Jumping Festival. While the motion to dismiss languished in judicial purgatory.
Wait, what? Seriously? I had no idea. Rocco and Resilient are the same horse. She tried to change her name, she tried to change his too. That's insane. But it actually makes sense because it's Laura Owens. Okay. Thank you for the clarification, Bootsground.
She jetted back to California for another 12-class equestrian marathon, and here's her haul. Second place in the Ariat Adult Medal, the Adult Amateur Hunters 18 to 35, and the USHJA 3-foot 3-inch Adult Jumping Seat Medal Final, the flat phase. She took 4th place in the $5,000 Adult Amateur Hunter West Coast Finals and the Modified Junior Amateur Hunter, as well as the USHJA 3-foot 3-inch Adult Jumping Seat Medal Final. She took 5th place in the USHJA 3-foot 3-inch Adult Jumping Seat Medal Gymnastics phase. The rest of the classes were a mix of did not place, did not start, or never finished. At this point, we are trapped in a repetitive comedy sketch. The hearing happens. The horse show happens. The ruling remains pending. The horse show happens. The litigation hits a wall, but the horse show circuit absolutely does not. It's truly remarkable that while her legal foundation was crumbling, her commitment to collecting ribbons remained the only thing in this story with a pulse. This is easily the most hilarious theme in the entire record. Attorneys rotate, claims live or die, and cases get restructured from the grave. But the horse show schedule remains as punctual as a Swiss train. It finally brought us to October, the month Judge Backus finally emerged from the 60-day advisement cocoon. For the first time, the outcome actually felt uncertain. The legal drama was coming to a head, and October was finally ready to deliver the verdict. Act 23. the reckoning. For over a year, this entire circus revolved around one thing: the abortion coercion claim. It was the engine of this hot mess, transforming a bitter breakup into a full-blown civil lawsuit that survived motions, spawned endless hearings, triggered constitutional panic, and wasted thousands of pages of paper. Now, in October 2022, Judge Allison Backus was ready to finally tell us if this house of cards was actually standing, or if it was time to pull the plug. On October 12th, we get the ruling. In a beautiful display of cosmic irony, Laura kicked off the Temecula Valley National Fall Show 1 on the exact same day Judge Backus dropped the hammer. One calendar, two very different worlds colliding.
Well, we all know that her victim narrative and resilient do not go in the same hand. So, she tried.
While Laura was busy jumping fences in California, the court back in Maricopa County was busy torching her legal strategy. Judge Backus issued her ruling, and it was a total bloodbath for the centerpiece of the case. She granted Greg's motion for judgment on the pleadings, and just like that, the abortion coercion claim wasn't just weakened or delayed. It was nuked. Dismissed. After over a year of manufacturing a legal crisis, the court finally called a spade a spade. The law simply did not apply to the fairy tale she had been spinning. Judge Backus finally leaned into what the defense had been screaming for months. Arizona Revised Statute 36-2153 is meant to regulate actual medical coercion, not to provide a narrative framework for whatever this was. Since Laura's own account admitted she self-administered the medication at home, the facts and the law were playing for two completely different teams. It's one of the most boring yet brutally consistent features of the legal system. When forced to choose between a dramatic cinematic storyline and the actual dry text of a statute, the law tends to win. Shocker, I know. Just look at the trail of wreckage between August 2021 and October 2022. The endless counterclaims, the revolving door of attorneys, the discovery brawls, the desperate pivots to constitutional crises, and enough paperwork to flatten a forest. It all spent over a year orbiting that one single doomed abortion coercion claim. And then the curtain finally dropped. The court didn't care about the online noise, the amateur sleuths, or the YouTube fever dreams. It wasn't about the optics or the public's opinion. It was just a judge reading the actual law and delivering a cold, hard dose of reality. This doesn't fit. Turns out, you can scream into the void as loudly as you want, but at the end of the day, a judge's gavel doesn't give a damn about your narrative. On October 13th, we get the aftermath. The following day, the court dropped its minute entry. But here's the kicker. The lawsuit wasn't entirely dead. Not quite. Because some earlier arbitration certificate, the remaining claims were off to the Civil Court Administration arbitration desk. In normal person speak, that's just the legal system's way of saying, congratulations, you've survived the first boss battle. Sure, the paperwork is going to keep piling up like a hoarder's nightmare, but let's be real. The centerpiece of the case is gone. They might still be playing in the sandbox, but the main attraction has officially left the building. Meanwhile, while all of this is unfolding in Arizona, Laura remained on the California horse show circuit. From October 12th to the 16th, she competed in the Temecula Valley National Fall 1. Then, almost immediately afterwards, from October 19th to October 23rd, she competed in the Fall National 2. The pattern we've watched for more than an hour remained unchanged. Courtroom, horse show, courtroom, horse show, motion, ribbon, hearing, competition, court ruling. The calendar continued doing what the calendar does. On October 21st, the arbitrator arrives. The next move was purely administrative, but it mattered. Davina Jackson was tapped to oversee the scrap heap of remaining claims. Think of it as the legal equivalent of being demoted from the main stage to a windowless basement conference room. The fight wasn't over, but it was certainly downgraded. You're still in the arena, sure, but you're no longer playing for the championship. You're just fighting over the scraps left behind after the main event got nuked. This ruling isn't just about Greg Gillespie. It's about the fact that for over a year, the abortion coercion theory was the entire shaky foundation of this dumpster fire. It was the reason for every filing, every hearing, and every dramatic escalation. And now, the court just kicked the legs out from under it. When you lose your centerpiece, the play is usually to either regroup or go hunting for a new battlefield. And if you've been paying attention to this timeline, you already know which one they picked. Hint, it wasn't regrouping. By the end of October, the abortion coercion claim had been dismissed. The court had rejected the central legal theory.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate that. I know that before I started doing lives or actually went on other people's channels, I got accused of being AI. And you know what? That's okay, because I guess they used one of my voices to help AI learn how to have, I don't know, a voice. It's weird. But thank you, I appreciate it.
The arbitration was now taking over the remaining claims. Laura continued competing on the California circuit, and the litigation survived, but in a very different form. That's when the story pivots again. Because as the civil case begins losing momentum, a new front opens.
Well, in Boots Ground, she remembers like when it was with Michael Maricini, she was doing the WEF in Florida in the winter. So, yeah, like she would just horse it around everywhere.
Not in the civil court, in the world of protective orders. And if you thought the paperwork was slowing down, November is about to disappoint you. Act 24, the protective order era. October 2022 completely nuked the trajectory of this case. With the abortion coercion claim, the engine that fueled over a year of legal theater, dismantled, the civil suit didn't die, but it definitely lost its main act. The remaining claims got shuffled off to arbitration.
I will say that there's one thing I did with this video that she cannot accuse me of using her name image. Well, name maybe, but not her image or her likeness, because these images I created do not look like her at all. Just gonna say.
And while the corpse of the lawsuit was still technically twitching, the focus immediately pivoted elsewhere. Because if you can't win on the merits, you might as well go hunting for a fresh distraction, right? In November 2022, we get the new battlefield. One of the recurring themes throughout this timeline is that.
So what I'm getting here is I need to do some easy listening for people to fall asleep to. Which, maybe I can create another channel for that. Thoughts? Thank you.
Conflict rarely disappears. It just relocates. A dispute starts in text messages, then moves to lawsuits, then motions, then police reports, then counterclaims, hearings, arbitration, the venue changes. Then the conflict remains. By November 2022, the next venue had arrived, the protection order system. But meanwhile, from November 9th to the 13th, before we get to any of the paperwork, let's check in with the one participant in this story that has never missed a scheduled appearance, the horse show calendar.
Little Queen, I'm not singing for you. Not today, anyway.
Laura competed at the National Sunshine Series 2, Among the results, a second place team finish with the US HJA Hunter Team Challenge. At this point, I genuinely believe the horse show schedule deserves its own legal representation. Every other participant in this story has changed attorneys. The horse shows never do. November 15th, we get the renewal. As the main event hit the scrap heap, Laura pivoted by filing to renew the order of protection against Greg, claiming he was playing secret agent, monitoring her whereabouts, stalking her social media, and using burner accounts to keep the harassment train rolling. A judicial officer signed off on it the same day, proving that in this circus, when one door closes, another bizarre procedural arena is always waiting to be christened.
Thank you, Text Packet, for saying that I have a nice and very calming voice, and that this story actually helps having that kind of a voice in it because her crimes are infuriating, and they are. They absolutely are. And I try to, when I record at least, I try to keep an even tone because if I really let myself get too enmeshed into the story, then it'll come out angry and bitter and, then it ramps people up and it makes it, I guess, less digestible.
And here's where the timeline gets deliciously suspicious. Just weeks after her civil case's central claim hit the shredder, the narrative conveniently swerved back to a harassment and personal safety issue. Whether you
Momster, you are absolutely correct. She blamed Greg Gillespie and Greg Woodnick. She tried to pull Mike Maricini into it as well, though. It's in the papers.
view this as a tactical pivot or a genuine coincidence, that's up to you. But the pattern is impossible to ignore. As soon as the civil theory started gasping for air, the protective order drama went into overdrive. But before that, we get the Las Vegas detour. Because this timeline follows its own laws of physics, another horse show arrives almost immediately. November 14th to the 20th, we get the Las Vegas National. While the protective order drama picked up steam, Laura was busy adding more ribbons to the collection. 4th place in the $500 adult amateur hunter welcome. 5th place in the $500 adult amateur hunter handy. 7th place in the $2,500 adult amateur hunter classic. 8th place in the $1,000 adult amateur hunter stake. At this point, the last 18 months have been a predictable cycle of court filings and horse shows. The rhythm never changes, and honestly, it's impressive how consistently she manages to alternate between playing victim in the courtroom and playing show pony in the arena. We've come to December 2022, and the paperwork starts to catch up. By year's end, the protective order machine was officially humming along. On December 8th, the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office personally served Greg, dotting the I's and crossing the T's on the paperwork. The notice requirements were satisfied, and just like that, the new conflict was fully operational. Because apparently the drama just can't exist without a fresh round of legal paperwork to keep things spicy. By the end of 2022, the landscape was completely unrecognizable. The abortion coercion claim was dead. The case was rotting away in arbitration, and a revolving door of attorneys, police reports, and protective orders had buried the original relationship under a landfill of litigation. The paperwork has effectively developed its own personality, and its own chaotic one, but once you stop staring at the endless mountain of motions and accusations, a larger, far more predictable pattern emerges. And let's just say, it's a show that was never really about Greg Gillespie. At the start of this, there was no lawsuit. Just a blink and you missed it fling. 3 dates, 1 hookup, and a breakup. Nothing about that mundane disaster hinted.
We are not going to get to Clayton today. I actually have this split up into multiple parts, and there will be 10 total, I think is how I have it split up. And so we're on number 3 right now.
that we'd end up with a legal circus featuring multiple lawsuits, counterclaims, protective orders, police reports, constitutional grandstanding, and arbitration proceedings. We've hit the trifecta of insanity with the FBI references, corporate espionage accusations, a revolving door of attorneys and judges, and enough filing cabinet fodder to keep an entire Office Depot franchise in business for the next decade. And yet, here we are. This timeline is a goldmine, because every major claim eventually crashes into a reality check, a text, a timestamp, a horseshow result, or a court order. Receipts aren't always the whole story, sure, but they have an infuriating habit of existing completely independently of the narrative somebody is trying to sell. And when the truth and the evidence go toe-to-toe, things get messy fast. More than anything else, I keep coming back to the calendar. Not because the horse shows prove or disprove every allegation. They don't. Not because a ribbon is evidence of innocence. It isn't. But because the calendar never takes sides. The calendar doesn't care about the narratives. It doesn't care about the feelings. It doesn't care about motions. It simply records where people were and what they were doing. And throughout this entire saga, the calendar became one of the most reliable witnesses in the room. Court hearing, horse show. Motion deadline, horse show. Police report, horse show. Attorney withdrawal, horse show. Under advisement ruling, horse show.
Well, the good thing here, Appeals, is you don't have to know about horse racing and jumping to figure out this story is ridiculous and all kinds of crazy nonsense.
At some point, the pattern stops being occasional. It becomes structural. What began as a relationship dispute slowly transformed into something else, a litigation ecosystem. The original relationship became buried beneath layers of filings, counterfilings, discovery disputes, protective orders, appeals to authority, public narratives, private allegations. The legal machinery became larger than the event it created, and that's rare. Most disputes eventually burn out. This one expanded. By the end of 2022, we finally got what everyone had been chasing for over a year. An answer. Not every question, don't hold your breath, but to the central theory driving this legal train wreck. Judge Backus finally dropped the hammer, and the abortion coercion claim crashed and burned. It didn't lose because of public opinion or internet peanut gallery, but because the law simply refused to play nice with the facts being peddled. That's how the actual courts work. Theories eventually have to dodge the statutes, narratives have to survive the evidence, and claims have to endure the kind of scrutiny they've been desperately trying to avoid all along. Sometimes they survive, sometimes they don't. Take the names off the documents. Remove the dates. Hide the case numbers. Cover up jurisdictions. And then look only at the sequence of events. If you've followed this story closely, you probably noticed certain recurring themes. The urgency.
Tony Marie, I hope your back feels better. And that dinner sounds amazing.
A pregnancy claim. A medical emergency. Escalating legal threats. Family involvement. Massive document dumps. Protective orders. Reputational pressure. Conspiracy allegations. A growing cast of attorneys. An ever-expanding universe of alleged bad actors. Then, ask yourself, are we looking at two completely unrelated stories? Or are we looking at the same script with different cast members? That's not a question the court was asked to answer. It's not a question I can answer for you. But it is a question that becomes increasingly difficult to ignore once you've spent several hours staring at a timeline. Because in 2023, a new cast member enters the story. And unlike Greg Gillespie, this one comes with a national audience. His name is Clayton Echard. And once that happens, the receipts stop living quietly inside Maricopa County court filings. They go public, and the timeline explodes. The ultrasound controversy returns. The twin pregnancy claims return. The media arrives. The internet arrives. And for the first time, millions of people begin looking at the same receipts we've spent the last several hours examining, and the ones that these two men before Clayton have had to traverse on their own. Next episode, the timeline goes national. The pregnancy claims return. The ultrasound controversy returns. The legal threats return. And for the first time, millions of people begin examining the same receipts we've been reviewing today. Until then, jurors, I'll leave you with the questions. Same script? Different cast members? Or just an extraordinary series of coincidences? As always, facts matter. Finding the clarity in the chaos. Well, that's all we have. We want to take this time to thank Toy for the video that goes with our channel song.
Y'all stick around because I'll chat after this.
The trial channel for compiling the videos that make it so easy to grab, and both Seeking Justice and As the Gavel Drops for all their hard work getting documents. You can check them all out in the links below in the description. So, as always, love your family, love your pets, love your neighbors, and we'll see you next time.
Standing here in the shadows of doubt, wheels of fate turning, can't figure it out. Hands are heavy, hearts are stone. This weight I carry, can't do it alone. Eyes of the crowd burning through my skin, their whispers loud, where do I begin? One road to mercy, one road to pain. Every choice here leaves a blood stain. Bang, 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 bang. As the virtual juror, what do I choose? Every step forward, there's something to lose. Voices screaming, justice chains, battling fate. What's the price for the call I make? Every heartbeat's a ticking bomb. The line between right and wrong is gone. Buried deep in the noise of the fight. Is there a way to make this right? Echoes of their pleas fill the air. Shattered dreams scattered everywhere. The gavel falls like thunder crashing. Can't stop the tide that keeps on smashing. As the virtual juror, what do I choose? Every step forward, there's something to lose. Voices screaming, justice chains, rattling fate. What's the price for the call I make? Yeah. What's the price for the call I make?
Well, thank you for being here, everybody. So Little Queen. Yes, Toy is wonderful with music. Fun inside story about my outro video is I actually created the music for it, and Toy helps me with the video. So my music is actually 2 iterations of my song put together, which was interesting to line up, I guess. Because yeah, getting it on beat and making it sound like it was one song was interesting. I actually had a little bit of help with it. I had it almost perfect. And what really helped was my daughter's boyfriend is really into music and beats. And so he helped me align the beats because it was just slightly off. So yeah, that was fun. Thank you, Text Packet. I had a lot of fun, and thank you. I'm proud of myself too, because this was definitely a bit of a stretch for me, because I have not gone live before. Um, I've always done premieres and been in the chat. So yeah. Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys being here today. I did update the video description. It has links to Clayton and Mike's legal funds that they are trying to raise because they have a lot of money that they're gonna have to figure out a way to come up with. Um, I also made sure that I put in all of the people that I have mentioned as far as like laying the groundwork before me. So there are several people below in the description that I would love for you guys to check out. Um, so yeah, it's fun. Do you guys have any questions? I would love to answer questions because I haven't done this before, ever. So it's been interesting. Um, I told a story at the beginning for those that weren't here and where my car today, trying to leave the parking lot, kept telling me to put it back in park because I couldn't figure out why and what was going on with it. And it was because I didn't close the driver's door. Oh boy. How long does it take me to put together one episode? Well, that depends. I know lawyers always couch, and I am not an attorney, but I have a background in psych, so I also couch my answers. This one took me a couple of weeks. Part of that was life happening. Part of that was um, ADHD happening and being stuck with how I wanted to present this. This one is my longest video that I've done so far. Um, so that's probably why it took so long. Also, I am learning that with the Laura Owens stuff, it's different um than it was when I did Karen Reed. Because when I did Karen Reed, Ozzy was mentioning, it's great to have the trial channel videos because I could literally just go to her channel, pull video, and just slap it all together and be done. Whereas this one, I'm creating graphics. The music and stuff I already have saved. But the creating the graphics and the images and some of it I'm timing out. I'm sure you noticed with the video and it changing graphic when I mentioned something else. I did not do that the entire time because it would have taken a lot more time for me to get this out. And I wanted to get it out this week because the anniversary of my channel was yesterday, actually. I started my channel a year ago, on July 2nd of 2025, and I had no idea that July 2nd was my anniversary until Rat House Media had his 1 year anniversary, and I was like, oh wait, I probably should look and see when mine is. So yeah, this one took me a while. The other ones, you know, recording for a 2-hour video, recording could take up to 6 hours, depending on if my brain wants to function. Um, Putting the video together takes longer, actually. Little Queen. Because I feel like she was purposely not going to court due to horse events. Am I right in thinking that? That's kind of what I got um, when I was going through the documents, and it seemed like she was avoiding court by saying, because she was at horse shows. She also didn't go to traffic court because she was at horse shows. And just completely blew off her traffic court. So yeah, she has a history of doing other things besides um, going to court. Ooh, you did not miss this, Nadia. I became interested in this case because of Winks. I was wrapping up my Karen Reed Trial 1 coverage, where I went through the transcripts with the sidebars, and I was doing basically recaps, kind of like I'm doing now with summaries. Um, and I was looking for something else because I knew that it was coming to a close. And Winx brought this to my attention. Um, I do remember hearing about Laura Owens. Like, there's this lady who says that she was pregnant by The Bachelor, and I was never in the Bachelor universe, so I didn't really follow it. So, but then Winx was like, "Hey, you really should look at this. It's insane." And so that's how I got into it. May, June. What is the process, or will you be able to cover your Ohio tragedy over this? Oh, was it 12 kids or 16? I think it was 16. Um, so I've tried covering current cases with that are or emerging cases, I guess. I tried doing that with the David stuff, and I found that for me and where I am right now with having a full-time job and doing this on the side and being a mom, um, and all the other responsibilities that just life throws at you, covering a emerging thing that's happening is difficult for me to cover day to day. So I will look I will keep looking at that Ohio tragedy, because it's definitely something that needs to be brought into the light. I don't think that that's going to be something that I can do now, just because it's a lot to try to keep up with something that's happening right away. I'm glad that you got a break at work, Kim, and we're going to be able to listen. Thank you for the anniversary shout outs. I appreciate that. Um, so yeah. All right, so what I have set is I actually have the redirect set to go to Justice Serve TV with Linda and Michael. And so that's where I plan on going to hang out for a little while if they're still over there. I hope so. Otherwise, y'all have a great night and thank you for being here.